as today's coverage continues, not to be overshadowed. The men's high jump competition just happens to feature two of the hottest jumpers in the world this year. Silver medalist from the Olympic Games and American record holder Hollis Conway, who improved that record to 7 feet 10 inches just last week. And then, of course, the first and only man to eclipse the 8-foot barrier in the high jump, Cuba's Javier Sotomayor. With those two, anything could happen. Pretty good hot action down here on the field, Bob Varsha. Different from Mike Powell. But now let's go to the men's high jump. As I said, live track and field. That's what it's about. Here's Javier Sotomayor, world record holder at 8 feet. Up for his jump at 7'6½", and do you think he cleared it by enough? 2.5, 3-inch clearance at 7'6½", a height that used to be the standard by which great high jumpers were measured, is just an intermediate height for Javier Sotomayor. He's so strong, he converts all of his speed up into the air. Look at that height. Look at that clearance. Javier Sotomayor, unbelievable, 11 inches as we go to the men's high jump. And as you can see, Javier Sotomayor, the first and only man over 8 feet. This is the American record holder, Hollis Conway. He jumped 7'10" last week in Oklahoma City, but that attempt at 7'8½" lacked a little bit of confidence. It lacked a little bit of the aggression we've been talking about in the long jump. Anytime you get two great competitors together like Conway and Sotomayor, like Powell and Myrick's, winning that competition becomes very, very important. Here comes Conway. He looked like he was in good position right until he planted his foot, and then his knee seemed to just kind of blow out. He kind of got flat on that particular jump. So we're going to have to take a look and see what Sotomayor does at 7'8½". Conway, as I said, the American record holder that set that record at the Olympic Festival last week in Oklahoma City, the day after Sotomayor jumped 8 feet down in Puerto Rico. I asked Conway if he felt a little bit of inspiration from Sotomayor, and he said, yeah, absolutely. What can you do? I wanted to be the first guy to jump 8 feet. Sotomayor did it, so what I had to do is go out and do the best I could do. Go out and at least go the American record. And that American record clearance by Conway, which we saw in the feature a couple of moments ago, had plenty of room to spare. It may have even been an 8-foot jump on his 7'10" attempt. But now we're going to look at here the world record holder, Javier Sotomayor of Cuba. 8 days ago down in San Juan, he jumped 8 feet. There are other athletes who are jumping well right now. In fact, yesterday in Brussels, the Swede, Patrik Sjöberg, jumped 7'10½" and took attempts at 8 feet a half inch. So the assault on the 8-foot barrier and the assault on the world record in the high jump continues. Sotomayor so far is clean in this competition. He has no misses, and we saw his previous attempt and clearance at 7'6½", a very impressive one. The bar is now at 7'8½", and they are going very methodically on their way to what would be a new world record, 8 feet a half inch. Were one of these athletes to jump 7'8½", they would then go to 7'10½", and then 8 feet a half inch. They're going 2-inch progressions the entire way. And of course, 7'10½", if cleared by Hollis Conway, would constitute a new American record. Bob, do you see any similarities between these particular events? You can't use unlimited speed. Let's take it as we look at the all-time world top 5 in the high jump, 8 feet Sotomayor, Sjöberg, Trenhart, Packlin, and Pavernitsen. As I said, all those athletes still active in the event, and therefore all assaulting this particular barrier. But this man, as far as I'm concerned, approaches the bar as quick or quicker than any man alive. But you can't use unlimited speed because you're running in a turn. You are running in a straight line on the long jump runway.
Well, definitely. When you look at Javier, he's coming up with his approach. He's not looking really bad, but he has to have the tempo where he could feel very comfortable with either running real fast and slowing it up. So I think that he's got one of the best approaches. Now, he's turning.
Look at that clearance at 7'8½", and I know that he will approach the bar faster than that as the bar goes up. Javier Sotomayor, his next attempt will be at 7 feet 10½. Look at this clearance, ladies and gentlemen. He does brush it on the way down, but look at his hips. This is 7 feet 8½ inches. We'll be back with more high jump and long jump. And we return to the Jack in the Box Invitational after these brief messages.
Larry to take third place. Now here is Hollis Conway's third and final attempt of the high jump. And although he got good clearance, as Dwight mentioned, got his hips up in the air, he scratched the bar and knocked it off. So big disappointment there for the new American record holder, Hollis Conway. Good effort for Ana Quiro of Cuba in the women's 800. We'll be back in a moment. Back to the high jump. Here is Javier Sotomayor. What do you think, Dwight?
Well, Bob, he's won the competition by his clearance at 7'8.5", and as we saw earlier, a very impressive clearance. Hollis Conway of the United States just didn't have a good day. His run-up was moving all over the apron, he said. He'd moved back 5 feet and still felt like he was too close to the bar. So Sotomayor is jumping by himself, something that he does very well, by the way. He does not need competition to jump high. And that's his first failure of the afternoon. He seemed to land with a lot of the force on his plant. You want to be running up off the ground when you plant your foot. Let's see what he hit it with. I think that he just hit it on the way up. He really just never had the hip height to make this particular height. Yes, he did. He was just a little bit too far away. So he definitely has the potential to jump this height. And he normally has one miss in a competition when he sets a world record. So we certainly have not seen the end of Javier Sotomayor today.
The replay quickly. Let's go back to the high jump and Javier Sotomayor.
From one outstanding performance to potentially another one. He has already set the stadium record at 7 feet 8.5 inches. And on his first jump at this height, 7'10.5", he had the height, he just had it in the wrong place. By the way, 7'10.5" is a bit of a metric barrier, 2 meters 40. That barrier was eclipsed in 1985, and that is why I feel, with the European jumpers really being the ones jumping at the height, that 8 feet fell as quickly as it did because the 240 barrier was surpassed 4 years ago. Sotomayor, second attempt, 7'10.5". And just like in New York, he got way, way out of his curve and his approach and was in no position to take it up on that particular jump, which is a shame because his first attempt, he had the height that he needed. He simply did not have it in the right place. Sotomayor a little bit tired and a little bit frustrated. Here we'll see him. He's not approaching the bar quite as quickly as we saw him do in San Juan. And he could tell there was no way he was going to be able to jump. He was going to hit the bar on the way up and maybe land on the bar on the way down. He will have one more. Let's go back up to Bob and Larry.
Let's go back to the high jump right now, and with his back to the bar, psyching himself up. Dwight Stones has already talked about how important this concentration is to the only man in the world to clear 8 feet. And he's slapping himself on the face now. Dwight, you have talked with Javier Sotomayor. Why does he go through that slapping exercise?
He tells me that he will behave differently depending on if he needs to psych himself up or psych himself down. If he is too jacked up for a particular jump, he will try to calm himself and talk to himself. When he doesn't feel he's psyched enough, he'll slap himself and hit himself and almost degrade himself, it seems, verbally. You can see how long his run-up is. He's got a 90-foot run-up, which makes it difficult for him to jump in some places. I know he wants to jump well here. Schoberg jumped this height yesterday. He is knocking on the door of Sotomayor's record. Sotomayor understands how important his 8-foot jump is and was to spectators and fans of track and field in the United States because it's an imperial barrier. It doesn't have a particular significance metrically, aside from the fact that, of course, it was a bettering of his own world record. But he wants to jump high here in the United States. This is only the second time he has jumped in this country. He jumped in the New York Games a couple of weeks ago, had a disappointing performance. He's jumped 7'8.5" here, which he really feels is sort of a pedestrian height for him. He really should jump 7'10" and change consistently. Let's see if he does that. This is his final attempt. And it will not happen today. His second and third attempts very similar. And he will win the competition in a new stadium record of 7'8.5", and we saw that jump earlier. He certainly had tons of room to spare on that jump. His first attempt at 7'10.5", he had the height to jump the bar, to clear the height easily. And I'm sure that he will feel very disappointed. I think the only thing that we will have to worry about is, did he hurt himself on these last two jumps? It did seem as though he bailed out on these jumps. He's out of position, and he quit on those particular jumps, and maybe he twisted his ankle a little bit. He seems to be not walking very, very solidly. But Javier Sotomayor will have another day. He is already the world record holder, and he has taken the measure of Hollis Conway today at the Jack in the Box Invitational. Men's high jumps, Javier Sotomayor, the winner at 7'8.5". Hollis Conway, second at 7'6.5", and John Morris at 7'4.5".